Captain Emily Mitchell stood at the observation deck of the HSS Defiant, her eyes fixed on the holographic display, showing the debris field behind them. The remains of 3 Imperial pursuit vessels drifted silently in the void. Their once perfect formation, now nothing more than scattered fragments against the backdrop of stars. "Status report," she called out, her voice steady, despite the exhaustion threatening to overwhelm her. 72 hours of continuous evasion had left the entire crew running on stims and determination. Lieutenant Sarah Cooper's voice crackled through the ship's intercom. "Engineering reports main reactor at 63% capacity, Captain. We've managed to reroute power from the damaged sections, but the strain on our remaining systems is significant." Emily nodded. Though no one could see the gesture, the Defiant had been running far too hot for far too long. She was the last of her kind, the final warship of the human fleet still capable of faster-than-light travel. The others had fallen in the Battle of Saul, buying time for the civilian ships to escape the Empire's overwhelming force. "Tactical, any sign of additional pursuit?" she asked, already knowing the answer. The Empire never sent just one wave. "Negative on direct pursuit, Captain," reported Commander Jack Reynolds, his fingers dancing across his console. The former hacker had an almost supernatural ability to read between the lines of sensor data. "But I'm picking up something interesting in their communication patterns. You might want to see this." Emily crossed the bridge in quick strides, the soft hum of the ship's systems a constant companion. The tactical display showed a complex web of quantum communications between Imperial vessels, their perfect synchronization a testament to their technological superiority. Or so they claimed. "Look at this pattern," Jack said, highlighting a section of the data stream. "Every Imperial ship we've encountered uses the exact same communication protocols. Not just similar, identical, down to the quantum level." Emily leaned closer, her eyes narrowing. "That should be impossible. Even quantum systems have variations." "Exactly." Jack's voice carried a hint of excitement now. "They're so focused on perfection, on everything being exactly the same, that they've actually created a massive vulnerability. One we might be able to exploit." Before Emily could respond, the ship's AI, Araya, interrupted. "Captain, multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Imperial Heavy Cruiser Squadron emerging at coordinates Mark 739. "How many?" Emily asked, already moving back to the command chair. 5 Crimson-class cruisers, Captain. Standard Imperial Formation Delta." Of course it was standard. Everything about the Empire was standard, predictable, perfect. And perhaps, Emily realized, as she watched the massive warships emerge from hyperspace, that was their greatest weakness. "All hands, battle stations," she ordered, a plan already forming in her mind. "Jack, I want everything you've got on their communication systems. Sarah, see if you can boost power to the quantum sensors, even if it means taking life support to minimum levels." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, each member understanding the stakes. They weren't just fighting for their own survival now. They were fighting for every human colony, still free from Imperial control. For every refugee ship still running. As Emily watched the Imperial ships begin their attack formation, she noticed something she'd never seen before. Their movements, their communications, their entire operation. It was all connected through that single, perfect, standardized system. A system that had never been questioned, never been modified, never been improved upon because it was already perfect. And in that moment, she understood why humanity had survived when so many other species had fallen to the Empire. It wasn't their technology, their numbers, or their weapons. It was their ability to question, to adapt, to see patterns, and break them. "Jack," she said, a small smile playing at the corner of her mouth, I think I know how one ship can take down an empire. The command center of the HSS Defiant had been transformed into an improvised think tank. Holographic displays flickered with lines of Imperial code, their perfect symmetry both beautiful and vulnerable. Captain Emily Mitchell watched as her crew, the finest minds humanity had to offer, worked to turn that perfection against itself. The Empire's entire fleet architecture is built on quantum entanglement, Dr. Amanda Carter explained, her hands moving through the holographic display. The quantum physicist had dark circles under her eyes, but her voice carried the excitement of discovery. Every ship is connected to every other ship through a network of perfectly synchronized particles. Jack Reynolds nodded, his fingers never stopping their dance across his terminal. It's like they've created one massive quantum computer, but they're only using it for communication and coordination. The potential here is, well, it's terrifying. Terrifying how? Emily asked, though she was beginning to see the pattern herself. Engineer Jake Cooper looked up from the gutted communication panel he'd been modifying. Because they've never considered someone might hack it. It's like they've built the perfect house, but never installed a single lock because they thought the design was too beautiful to be attacked. The ship shuddered slightly as Sarah rerouted more power to their modifications. They'd taken shelter in an asteroid field, using the dense metal deposits to mask their presence from Imperial scans. It wouldn't hide them forever, but it gave them time to work. "Show me," Emily ordered, and Amanda brought up a new display. "Here's the Imperial command structure," she said, pointing to a complex web of light. "Every order, every command, every response travels through this network. It's perfect, instantaneous, and completely unhackable, according to Imperial doctrine." Jack smirked, but they never met a human hacker before. "Look at this." He pulled up his own display, showing a subtle flaw in the pattern. Their system is so perfect that it has no way to handle imperfection. No firewall, no security protocols, nothing. Why build defenses against something that's supposedly impossible? Emily leaned forward, her mind racing. So if we could introduce an imperfection, it would cascade through their entire system, Amanda finished. Like a virus in a body with no immune system. The problem, Jake called out from his position, is that we'd need to get our signal into their network first, and it would have to be strong enough to overcome their quantum coherence. Aria's voice joined the conversation. "Captain, I believe I can be of assistance. My quantum processors are compatible with Imperial architecture, if we modify them." "No," Emily cut in, understanding immediately. "That would mean sacrificing you. It would mean saving humanity," Aria responded simply, "and perhaps creating something new. My processing core could be used to generate the initial quantum signal. It would be poetic, in a way. The Empire's perfect machine, undone by an imperfect one." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They had a weapon now, one that could potentially turn the Empire's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. But the cost would be high. "How long?" Emily asked finally. Jake looked up from his work, his face streaked with grease and determination. 6 hours to make the modifications. Maybe less if we push it." "Push it," Emily ordered. "The Empire won't give us much more time than that." She turned to face her crew, these brilliant, impossible people who dared to challenge perfection itself. "I want everyone to understand what we're attempting here. If we succeed, we change the course of history. If we fail, we won't fail," Jack interrupted, his voice firm, "because we're not trying to be perfect. We're just trying to be human." Emily nodded, a fierce pride burning in her chest. "Then let's show the Empire why that's more than enough. Let's get to work." The Carina Nebula burned before them, its swirling clouds of purple and gold creating a spectacular backdrop for what they were about to attempt. Captain Emily Mitchell stood at the bridge of the HSS Defiant, her hand resting on the command console as they waited for their prey. Imperial patrol detected, Araya announced, her voice carrying a new resonance since the modifications. 3 Raptor-class destroyers approaching on standard search pattern. Standard, Emily mused, the word tasting like victory already. Of course it is. Status of our modifications. Jake's voice came through, strained but confident. Quantum transmitter is hot, Captain. Araya's core is integrated and stable. For now, we'll get one shot at this before the system burns out. Make it count, Emily ordered. She turned to Jack at the tactical station. How's our little surprise package looking? Jack's fingers flew over his console, making final adjustments to the code they'd spent hours perfecting. It's beautiful, Captain. The most elegant mess I've ever created. The Empire's ships won't know what hit them until it's too late. The Imperial patrol drew closer, their sleek ships moving in perfect formation. They were beautiful in their own way, Emily had to admit, each one identical down to the last bolt, their movements synchronized with machine-like precision. They've spotted us, Sarah reported from engineering, getting power spikes from their weapon systems. Emily allowed herself a small smile. Right on schedule. Dr. Carter, are we in position? Amanda worked her own station, monitoring the quantum fields they were about to exploit. Perfect position, Captain. The nebula's radiation will help mask our initial signal. They won't see it coming. Imperial vessels are hailing us, Araya reported. Standard Surrender Demand Protocol 7 Alpha. Let's give them something not so standard, Emily said. Execute Operation Dragon's Tooth, Araya. It's been an honor. The honor has been mine, Captain, the AI responded. And then her voice changed, becoming something both more and less than it had been. The modified quantum signal began to pulse through her core. The effect was almost immediate. The lead Imperial destroyer suddenly jerked in its course, its perfect formation breaking for the first time. Emergency signals began broadcasting on all frequencies. It's working, Jack exclaimed, his eyes wide as he watched the data streams. Their quantum network is accepting our signal as valid command code. They can't tell it's not coming from their own command structure. The second destroyer began to turn, its weapons powering up, but not targeting the Defiant. Instead, it locked onto its own sister ship. The perfect targeting systems the Empire was so proud of now turned against themselves. Their crews are trying to override, Amanda reported, excitement in her voice. But they can't. The system won't accept manual control because our signal is coming through their own command protocols. The space around them lit up as the Imperial ships began to fire on each other. Their perfect formations became a dance of destruction, each ship following commands they couldn't override, firing with an accuracy they couldn't deny. Araya's core temperature is critical, Jake warned. We're losing her. Emily watched as the Imperial ships tore each other apart, their crews helpless to stop it. Araya, cut power to the transmitter. You've done enough. The AI's voice came through one last time, filled with something that sounded almost like pride. Test. Successful, Captain. It was worth it. Then she was gone, her core burning out as the last Imperial destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash of light and fury. The bridge was silent for a long moment. The only sound, the regular beeping of their instruments and the settling of their modified systems. Get me a damage report, Emily finally ordered, her voice soft but firm. And begin recovery of Araya's backup protocols. We just proved our theory works. Now we need to scale it up. The Empire's main fleet is out there, and thanks to Araya, we now know exactly how to bring it down. Admiral Xanthor stood before the Imperial High Command's holographic display, his gray scales reflecting the light of a dozen destroyed ships. The footage from the Carina Nebula played again. 3 perfect Imperial destroyers tearing themselves apart in a dance of self-destruction. Impossible, one of the council members declared, their voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years of certainty. Our systems are perfect. They cannot be compromised. Meanwhile, aboard the HS Defiant, Captain Emily Mitchell watched a different display. Jack Reynolds had managed to intercept the Imperial Council's transmission, and now her crew observed their enemy's denial with grim satisfaction. They still don't believe it, Sarah commented from her engineering station, where she was working to integrate the salvaged parts of Aria's core into their enhanced weapons system, even with the evidence right in front of them. That's our advantage, Emily replied, her eyes never leaving the Imperial transmission. Their perfect system has made them blind. They'd rather believe in a malfunction than accept that someone found a flaw in their design. A holographic display shifted, showing the Empire's response to the incident. Hundreds of ships were being mobilized, all following the same standard search patterns, all operating on the same vulnerable network. How long until the new integration is complete? Emily asked, turning to Jake Cooper, who was elbow-deep in modified circuitry. 4 hours, maybe 5, he responded, his voice muffled by the tools in his mouth. What we're trying here, it's like trying to turn a match into a star. The power requirements are off the charts. Dr. Amanda Carter looked up from her calculations, her face illuminated by the soft glow of quantum equations. The theory is sound, Captain. If we can amplify the signal strength by a factor of 10,000, we could affect every Imperial ship within a light year. But what? Emily prompted, though she already knew the answer. But the energy surge will burn through our systems like a supernova. We'll be dead in space after we fire it. Maybe worse. Back in the Imperial Council chamber, Admiral Xanthor was making his case. The human vessel must be found and destroyed. They are an aberration, a flaw in the perfect order of the galaxy. I request command of the 7th Fleet to hunt them down. Granted, the Council spoke as one, their perfect uniformity, a testament to their species' dedication to order, cleans this imperfection from our empire. Jack's voice cut through the tension on the Defiance bridge. Captain, I'm picking up multiple fleet movements. Big ones. They're mobilizing the 7th Fleet. Over 200 capital ships, all heading our way. Emily nodded, a plan already forming. Good. They're playing right into our hands. Sarah, how much of Aria's core did we manage to save? About 60%, Sarah replied. The pattern recognition and quantum interface modules are intact. But Captain, she's not really Aria anymore. Just code and circuits now. She gave us the key, Emily said softly. Now we need to make sure her sacrifice wasn't in vain. She straightened in her chair, decision made. Jake, push those modifications as far as they'll go. Amanda, I want every scrap of power we can generate channeled into that quantum signal. Jack, find us a position where we can draw in as many of those Imperial ships as possible. They'll know it's a trap, Jack warned. Emily's smile was sharp as a blade. Of course they will, but their perfect doctrine says we can't possibly threaten them. So they'll come anyway, in perfect formation, with perfect confidence, and that's exactly what we need. The crew moved with renewed purpose, each understanding their role in what was to come. They had proven their theory with 3 ships. Now they would test it against 200. The odds were impossible, but as Jake had said, while rebuilding their weapons, impossible just meant no one had been crazy enough to try it yet. The heart of the HSS Defiant had become a maze of jury-rigged systems and glowing quantum circuits. Emergency cooling units hummed constantly, fighting to keep the overclocked systems from melting down. Engineer Jake Cooper stood in the middle of it all, his face illuminated by the pulsing light of what he'd started calling the Dragon's Heart, their modified quantum transmitter. The power consumption is off the charts, he reported through the ship's comm, wiping sweat from his forehead. We're basically trying to turn our ship into one massive quantum bomb. Captain Emily Mitchell's voice came back clear and steady. Will it work? Jake looked at the readings again, then at the remnants of Aria's core they'd integrated into the system. It'll work. But Captain, there won't be much left of the Defiant after we fire this thing. There won't be much left of any of us if we don't, Sarah added from her station, where she was rerouting power from every non-essential system. Life support is already at 60%. When we fire this, we'll have maybe 10 minutes of air. Up on the bridge, Emily watched the tactical display as Jack Reynolds tracked the approaching Imperial fleet. 200 ships, moving in perfect formation, led by Admiral Xanthor's flagship, the Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Order. They're moving exactly as predicted, Jack noted, his fingers dancing across his console. Standard search pattern Delta 7. They're not even trying to hide their approach. Dr. Amanda Carter looked up from her quantum calculations. Why would they? In their minds, we're already dead. Their perfect system can't be beaten. So they don't need strategy. Emily moved to the center of the bridge, her mind racing through the final pieces of their plan. Show me the targeting solution again. The holographic display shifted, showing their position relative to the incoming fleet. The quantum signal they planned to release would spread like a wave, affecting every ship connected to the Imperial network. But they needed the fleet to be close enough, packed tightly together in their standard formation. One shot, Emily murmured. We get one shot at this. The ship shuddered as another power surge rippled through their modified systems. Jake's voice came through again, tense but determined. Captain, we need to start the power-up sequence now. The quantum matrix needs time to achieve maximum resonance. Do it, Emily ordered. She turned to her bridge crew, these brave souls who'd followed her into what might be their last battle. This is it, people. Everything we've worked for comes down to the next hour. As if on cue, the long-range sensors lit up. Amanda's eyes widened as she read the data. Captain, they're charging their jump drives. The entire fleet is preparing for a coordinated faster-than-light jump. They'll be on top of us in minutes. Emily's smile was fierce. Perfect. They're using their standard combat jump protocol. All ships synchronized, all systems linked. They couldn't make this any easier for us if they tried. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, each person knowing their role in what was to come. Jack finalized the targeting solutions. Amanda monitored the quantum fields. Sarah diverted the last reserves of power to their weapons. Engineering reports ready, Jake's voice announced. The Dragon's heart is primed. Whatever happens next, it's been an honor, Captain. Emily took her command chair, feeling the thrum of power building throughout the ship. They'd modified every system, pushed every limit, broken every rule in the book. Now they would see if human ingenuity could really triumph over imperial perfection. The honor has been mine, she replied, her voice steady. All hands, prepare for combat. The Empire's about to learn why humanity has survived every attempt to destroy us. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to be better than anyone expects us to be. The space around them began to distort as the Imperial fleet initiated their jump. The final battle was about to begin. Space itself seemed to tear apart as the Imperial fleet emerged from their jump. 200 ships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the massive pulsar behind the Defiant. The radiation levels were already climbing, but that was exactly what they needed. Multiple targeting locks detected, Jack called out, his hands flying over the tactical console. They're surrounding us in a standard containment pattern. Captain Emily Mitchell watched as the massive ships took their positions, each one moving with machine-like precision. The Imperial Dreadnought Eternal Order loomed directly ahead, its size dwarfing the Defiant. Admiral Xanthor is hailing us, Amanda reported from her station. Standard surrender protocol. Put him through, Emily ordered, straightening in her chair. Let's give them one last chance to realize their mistake. The holographic display flickered to life, showing the Imperial Admiral's scaled face. His expression was one of supreme confidence, almost pity. Human vessel. Xanthor's voice carried the weight of Imperial authority. Your aberration ends here. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will take apart your ship piece by piece to learn how you dared to challenge perfection. Emily's response was calm, almost amused. You still don't get it, do you? Your perfection is your weakness. Your standardization is your vulnerability. And you're about to learn why humanity has survived every empire that ever tried to crush us. Down in engineering, Jake's voice was tense over the comm. Captain, the Dragon's heart is at maximum power. The pulsar's radiation is actually helping. It's amplifying our signal by a factor of 20. Impossible, Xanthor declared, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. The first hint of doubt. No system could penetrate our perfect network. Watch us, Emily said, and cut the transmission. Sarah, route everything we've got to the quantum transmitter. Jack, target the fleet's command and control frequencies. Amanda, start the cascade sequence. The Defiant's modified systems screamed in protest as power surged through them. The Dragon's heart, built from Aria's sacrificed core and human ingenuity, began to pulse with an almost blinding light. Imperial fleet is moving into final attack position, Jack reported. They're linking their fire control systems for a synchronized strike. Emily's smile was sharp. That's right. Link everything. Make it perfect. Quantum signal at maximum, Amanda called out. Initiating transmission in 3, 2, 1. The pulse that emerged from the Defiant was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were immediate and devastating. The nearest Imperial ships shuddered as their perfect systems received commands they couldn't ignore and couldn't override. It's working, Jack shouted, watching as the first ships began to turn their weapons on their fellows. The cascade is spreading through their network. On the main screen, they could see Admiral Xanthor's flagship beginning to move against his will, its weapons powering up to target other Imperial vessels. The perfect formation was breaking apart as ship after ship received the corrupted commands. Hull temperature critical, Sarah warned from engineering. We're burning up from the inside out. Hold it together, Emily ordered, watching as chaos spread through the Imperial fleet. We need another 30 seconds for the signal to reach every ship in range. The bridge was filled with the sound of straining metal and overloading systems as the Defiant poured everything it had into the attack. Around them, the Imperial fleet had devolved into complete chaos. Ships fired on each other with perfect accuracy, their crews unable to stop their own weapons from targeting their allies. Signal saturation complete, Amanda announced triumphantly. Every ship in the fleet is affected. As if to punctuate her words, the mighty Eternal Order itself began to turn its main guns on its own support ships, its perfect systems now a prison for its crew. Emily watched the destruction unfold, knowing they'd just changed the course of history. Now, she said quietly, the Empire learns why perfection isn't everything. Admiral Xanthor watched in horror as his perfect fleet tore itself apart. The bridge of the Eternal Order had become a chaos of alarms and desperate cries as his crew fought against their own systems. Every override code, every emergency protocol, every fail-safe, all useless against the cascade of commands flowing through their network. Shut it down, he roared, his scales darkening with rage and fear. Shut everything down. We can't, Admiral, his executive officer reported, panic breaking through years of rigid training. The systems won't accept manual control. They're following Protocol Alpha Zero. but the commands aren't coming from High Command. Aboard the Defiant, Captain Emily Mitchell and her crew witnessed the unfolding destruction. The ship's hull groaned around them as their modified systems continued to pour out the corrupting signal, but none could look away from the spectacle before them. "Third Squadron is completely engaged," Jack reported, his voice almost gleeful. "They're fighting each other with perfect Imperial efficiency. The targeting computers are still operating at 100%. They just don't know they're shooting at the wrong ships." Sarah's voice cut through from engineering, strained but triumphant. "Power levels critical. The Dragon's heart is about to burn out, but the signal is self-sustaining now. It's replicating through their own network." On the main display, they watched as a wing of Imperial destroyers executed a flawless attack run on their own support ships. The precision was beautiful and terrible to behold, each shot finding its mark with deadly accuracy. "Admiral Xanthor is broadcasting on all frequencies," Amanda announced. "He's ordering the fleet to purge their computer cores." Emily leaned forward in her chair. "But they can't, can they? Not without violating Imperial protocol." "Exactly," Jack confirmed. "The command structure is so rigid that only the High Command can authorize a core purge, and our signal is blocking all communication with the capital. They're trapped by their own perfect system." The space around them had become a graveyard of Imperial might. Ships that had never known defeat were being systematically destroyed by their own allies, each firing solution calculated with mathematical precision, each formation maintained even as they destroyed themselves. "Look," Amanda called out. "The Eternal Order. It's turning its main guns on the command squadron." They watched as the massive dreadnought, pride of the Imperial fleet, brought its planet-killing weapons to bear on its own support ships. Admiral Xanthor's voice echoed through their speakers one last time. "This is impossible," he declared, but the fear in his voice betrayed his words. "We are perfect. We cannot be defeated by imperfection." "That's where you're wrong," Emily responded, though she knew he couldn't hear her. "Perfection is stagnant. Imperfection drives us to evolve, to adapt, to overcome." The Eternal Order fired, its massive guns unleashing destruction on its own forces. The command squadron, bound by the same protocols that doomed them all, maintained their perfect formation until the very end. "Hull integrity at 30%, Sarah reported. "We need to power down soon, Captain, or we won't have a ship left to celebrate in." Emily nodded, watching as the last of the Imperial ships continued their dance of destruction. "Start the shutdown sequence. Our work here is done." She turned to her crew, pride evident in her voice. "The signal will keep spreading through their network. By the time it reaches the capital, the Empire won't have a fleet left." As the Defiant systems began to power down, they watched the final acts of the battle. The Imperial ships, still moving with perfect precision, still following their perfect protocols, continued to execute their orders flawlessly, orders that now led only to their own destruction. "I almost feel sorry for them," Jack mused, watching the display. They never even considered that their greatest strength could become their greatest weakness. "That's the difference between us and them," Emily replied. "We know we're not perfect, and that's what makes us stronger." The bridge of the HSS Defiant was eerily quiet as they surveyed the aftermath. The massive debris field that had once been the pride of the Imperial fleet drifted silently against the backdrop of the pulsar. Captain Emily Mitchell stood at the viewport, her expression a mix of triumph and solemn recognition of the lives lost. "Quantum signal analysis complete," Amanda reported, breaking the silence. "The cascade effect is spreading through their network exactly as we planned. It's already reached 3 neighboring sectors." Jack's voice was filled with wonder as he monitored the long-range communications. "You should hear the chatter we're picking up. Every Imperial fleet the signal touches, they're all experiencing the same thing. The perfect system is eating itself alive. Sarah's voice came through from engineering, tired but proud. We've managed to stabilize the critical systems. The dragon's heart is dead. But we've got enough power for FTL. We can make it home. Not yet, Emily said, turning to face her crew. We have one more task. Jack, prepare a general broadcast on all frequencies. It's time to share what we've learned. The crew worked quickly, their movements still precise despite their exhaustion. They had survived, proved the impossible, and now they would ensure their victory meant something more than just destruction. Emily took her place at the command station, composing her thoughts before beginning the broadcast. To all ships, stations, and colonies within range, this is Captain Emily Mitchell of the Earth ship Defiant. What you've just witnessed is not just the defeat of an Imperial fleet, but the beginning of a new era. She paused, watching as Jake brought up displays showing the broadcast's spread. The Empire's perfect system was their greatest strength, but also their fatal flaw. We are transmitting the technical specifications of what we've done here, not as a weapon, but as a key to freedom. Multiple responses coming in, Jack reported excitedly. Colonial ships, independent traders, even some Imperial vessels that haven't been affected yet. They're all receiving the data. Amanda's console lit up with new information. Captain, I'm detecting ships dropping out of FTL nearby. Refugees and colonial vessels we thought were lost. They're coming to help. Emily continued her broadcast, her voice growing stronger. The Empire built their power on the idea of perfection, but they forgot something fundamental. Life isn't perfect. It's messy, adaptive, and beautiful because of its flaws. That's what makes us strong. That's what makes us survive. The first of the arriving ships came into view, a mix of vessels from various species and colonies. Each had suffered under Imperial rule. Each had been told they were imperfect, inferior. Now they were free. We're getting reports from the core worlds, Jack said, his voice filled with awe. The signal has reached the Imperial capital. Their defense grid is turning against them. The Empire, it's actually falling. Sarah had made her way to the bridge, still covered in grease and burns from engineering. ARIA would be proud, she said softly. Her sacrifice made this possible. Emily nodded, then addressed the growing fleet of free ships around them. The age of Imperial perfection is over. Now we build something new, not perfect, but better. A galaxy where diversity is strength, where adaptation is celebrated, where every species can contribute their own unique perspective. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Ships of all sizes and designs moved to form a protective screen around the battered Defiant. Former Imperial vessels, their crews having purged the corrupted systems, joined the growing fleet of free ships. So what now, Captain? Jake asked, looking at the incredible scene before them. Emily smiled, seeing not just victory, but hope for the future. Now we do what humanity does best. We adapt, we build, we grow. We help these people create something new from the ashes of perfection. Something imperfect, something free, something truly alive. The Defiant's engines hummed to life as they prepared to move forward with their new allies. Behind them, the debris of the Imperial fleet served as a monument to the fall of perfect order. Ahead lay a future where the strength of diversity and the power of adaptation would guide the galaxy into a new age. They had done the impossible. They had proved that one small ship, crewed by people who dared to question perfect systems, could change the course of history, not through perfection, but through the very flaws and adaptations that made them human.